Hey folks, it's Mark here again for another episode of the Digital Nexus podcast. This is episode 16. What are we covering today?
We've got obviously a lot of stuff that's happening in the space between Anthropic, Claude, Google, a lot of updates, a lot of issues, a lot of situations that they need to resolve.
A lot of stuff going on there, but also we dive into some comparisons between different development tools that are just really easy to pick up, even if you've never done any development before. So we'll look at Claude, we'll look at Bolt, we'll look at Vercel. So cool, creative things, your mind's going to be blown.
Woke up, tech talk, news flash, AI rolling in future in a dash. Digital dreams, cold and safe. We got the vision, never out of sync. AI, as it to the sky. Digital world, we reaching high, not centralized.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
And we're back, folks. It's episode 16 of the Digital Nexus podcast. Lots going on. My goodness, it's another week in AI, which means like 70 years in the normal world.
At least we are traveling through outer space, hitting close to the speed of light, and therefore everyone back on Earth is getting really old while we stay young.
Yeah, it's the interstellar effect.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, things just happen slow on Earth, and which is why the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight just seemed so slow yesterday. Watching it, right?
Is there 3 hours of my life that I wish I could get back?
I think there is. Sorry, I didn't even have this up there, but episode 16, as you can see there, it's really done well. This getting stuff ready. We've got all the equipment here and stuff. Thanks to Stone and Chalk for providing the space and stuff. This is on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So we are recording this after the fight. This is not our typical kind of like Friday afternoon where it's done before the fight and blah blah blah.
Did you watch it? You watched it?
Yeah, unfortunately. The pre-fights were way better. The women's like I forget what weight it was, but that was just a classic masterpiece of they were just standing there and throwing down.
I was going to say, it was like they were treating each other's heads as boxing bags.
Pretty much.
So just punch. But the Irish
and even
girl, headbutt, man. I mean, no, she won it. Yeah, the headbutting, but that was her eye. Yeah, that was a open wound on the top of her eye. If you're not
into the pugilistic kind of sports and stuff, then definitely turn away. But it is. There are protections and stuff around it, and some people won't like that. And fine, I get it. But it was a stark contrast to like what we saw there. I reckon that we should have had an AI version of Mike Tyson.
It would have been. Well, you know what? I reckon everything leading up to the event, we probably did have an AI version of Mike Tyson. All those little shorts of him boxing in the ring.
Yeah,
he's like even if he was fake. Let's just say it was all staged. He got up there. He looked so stiff. He looked like he could barely move.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Dude's 58 years old.
We should have had this. We should have had something like this.
This is what we should have had. This is actually you made this earlier on what tool is this?
This is Runway.
This is on Runway.
And I couldn't use the names like Mike Tyson or Jake Paul because otherwise it goes banned, generation blocked. So I had to change it and stuff. But
full screen this baby. This this is more entertaining than the thing we watched yesterday. Should we just sit here and watch this for 20 minutes?
I think so. I mean, this is kind of like what it looked like. I could have made it a bit more exciting with more punches and stuff, but they were just like standing there looking at each other. Anyway, Mike got paid. That's the main thing. So
$20 million.
You got paid. I think that's a good thing.
And I think that's why, he went out there. He was just like, you know what? It's in my backyard. Fuck this. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, it's done. He'll fight again, and then Jake Paul's calling out like one of the world champions. I'm like, mate, you've got a lot.
Oh, he was calling out Conor McGregor today on X.
I thought his next fight's maybe going to be Joe Biden.
Oh, but everyone,
same age,
everyone just had to laugh at him. Everyone, Joe Biden. Yeah, exactly right. The whole comment section under
Trump,
Jake Paul's commentary was just like, why don't you try and find someone who's like your age and your weight class? Oh wait, you're too scared. I
will. In any case, it was entertaining, and that's the main thing and stuff. So the Roman Colosseum lives on, basically, in the modern world.
Apparently.
What else were you up to this week? What was happening for you?
Interesting thing. So I've been playing a lot with just around some social AI tools. I've been working with the team around a lot of automation in the business. Playing with the likes of HubSpot tools and CoPilot integrations and their social media integrations.
Nice.
Just like really getting into like the automation of our marketing engine.
Yeah.
Which is it's interesting, but
it's important.
Such a cumbersome process. So I'm really glad that these AI tools exist now because I don't remember. I
Tools
don't
are great.
know how I mentally put up with it in the past.
Who knows? Who knows? You somehow survived and stuff.
I survived.
We're going to show a few things, apart from like going through the news and things that we've been up to. We're going to show some live comparisons of AI building tools. So like if you're going to use ChatGPT or Claude or like anything to help you build stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through that. Obviously the news and stuff. But was there anything else that you had for your week?
No, that was. I mean, my week has been pretty much heavy into the tools, into the research side of things as well.
Yeah.
One day I got to do a bit of a research discussion piece. I really want to just show off how I transition between different tools and services and platforms to be able to get to the outcomes that we want to get to.
Yeah.
I put that video up a couple of weeks ago around Hey Juno. Very cool.
Oh yeah,
Which is
yeah,
really
yeah,
cool,
yeah. That's
tool for people to.
it's a very cool tool.
So definitely check that one out. Yeah, what about yourself, man?
A couple things. So, Luna Park had this TED Talk, which was really cool. We saw some folks from Sydney University. They've got their, I think it's like a director's, I forget the exact name of it, but a training course that is run for folks working in the AI space. We know some lawyers from various kind of groups that were there. There was a whole heap of like AI interested kind of people. And yeah, it was down at Luna Park. We had the opening. So the people that run TEDxSydney were there. Then Kai Riemer and Sandra Peter had a very funny and educational duo talking about AI.
Ooh.
And then, so you can see here, like, the
Cats.
AI recognizing different features of cats. And, the interesting thing is like when it was trained in that certain way, if you had a cat with one leg, it's not going to, or three legs, it's not going to recognize it, because it's like part of the training. So,
did it have any dogs?
No dogs for this example, but that's okay. Cats are cool. Stefan Harrer was there. So he was covering something from CSIRO, the things that have been impacting scientific research. If you have been watching, I forget what I think it was a Japanese one, that they came up with a way that they can use GenAI to come up with novel, interesting scientific research that has been done before and test its theories and stuff. So interesting stuff there. Nadia Lee was talking about AI ethics and deep fakes, which was great. She's built a website that's called That's My Face that helps you, if your person, I was going to say your AI, if your person has been used as part of like any kind of like deepfake imagery, she helps fight that. Then there's also a musical one where they use AI music to generate new beats, and they did it live on stage. And it was really interesting because it's like artists embracing this thing that's going to disrupt them, just like, I guess when artists moved to electronics. So interesting stuff there. Simon Carlisle, he works for Google. He's done a whole lot of stuff with cochlear and, hearing, and how can AI actually help with that? Because the story is that like some people, even though there's like these devices that help you hear, turning them off because it was just too loud, there's too much noise, and having how can you have AI to actually help with that? And then we finally rounded out with Will Liang from MA Asset Management, and he had really funny insights. Even though he's from the financial services space, he spoke about how AI has actually brought him closer to family, to his son, his mother, who is he had cool images. Life of Pi, there's that scene where the tiger's in the boat with him. He's like, this is like my mother, she's like the tiger mom kind of thing. And, she's really loud and, very confident in terms of doing things. But coming to a country where you don't have the language, how that changes people. But with AI now she is. And it showed the Terminator, like as if they're walking into a store. So she's got her confidence and stuff back because she can translate. Because if you can't talk and communicate, you can't, you lose your persona basically.
So he hasn't been able to communicate with his.
No.
How has AI brought him closer to his family? That's what I want to.
Sorry, I'm talking about something else. So yeah, it's brought him closer to his family because he's talking about his son. His mother's one was more about how she is able to live in the world properly. I don't mean that like to be bad or anything like that. So wrong choice of words here. I mean that she can actually get by in a new community, which is very new to her, moving to Australia. The closer to the family thing is like the son, and how he was able to reconnect with him on things that the son's interested in, like Pokemon. So they built a Pokemon trading card game. Price tracker. And so the son learns about a bit of finance from his world. He learns a bit about Pokemon. They build something together, and it was just a way to get closer.
That's so cool. That's nice.
So very cool, very entertaining stuff. And then there was also like a talk at Microsoft earlier this week, just a few levels up from us actually. So on level 10, this is role-specific co-pilots is what they're showing here. So they have this concept of, and they're all into their co-pilot type stuff. So Costadine from Microsoft was there talking about this. And the idea is that Microsoft is really developing how you can have assistants for everything. So thanks to Barhead Solutions for that one. That was a great talk. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So those are the main things happening this week. This coming up week, it's all heaps of blockchain related things for me. But
Microsoft's done a few interesting things this week.
Just a few.
A couple of big announcements. We're jumping into it. I guess you're leading the way with that because that's
get into it.
The agent thing is quite an interesting piece there. Have you seen what they've also done with NASA?
No.
They've done a partner with NASA. Well, NASA partner with, I guess, CoPilot or Microsoft, and they've actually brought all of their satellite data, satellite data into a platform that people can then sort of surf around.
Oh, really? Okay.
Here, so this is one of the articles directly from the Microsoft blog itself. So obviously NASA has been collecting data from all of their satellite sources for God knows how long, and that hasn't actually been useful for the general public, and so they're putting it out there through CoPilot and their AI platform to be able to start, for people to just jump in. Yeah, I can have a little video here. Wow, full screen this.
Earth Copilot.
Yeah, so
Copilot for the Earth, finally.
So Earth data, better dashboard. So it's in beta at the moment, but like it's going to be a pretty interesting tool for people to just swim around, see all the geo data that's been collected from NASA and their satellites over the years.
Yeah.
All through Copilot, and you can query it and talk to it and ask questions with Copilot. It's an interesting and useful way for. With all the data that's being collected from NASA, and everyone's always questioning, is it real, is it fake? So now, NASA's putting it out there.
Well, now those fakes can be made by anyone, really.
Yeah.
So congratulations. They are not fakes. Anyway, what do you got?
So also they've, this came out a couple weeks ago, but I think it got
Short on screen, Jamie.
When our episodes were cancelled, but they've also done the virtual Vatican tour. Did you see about this?
No.
So this is pretty cool. So they've done a little, this is it's AI generated.
Yeah.
I use that inverted because it's generated from obviously real image that AI has then pasted all together to allow people to have these virtual experiences through, I guess here is the St. Peter's Basilica. Wow, I couldn't get that word out, could I?
Had it.
So essentially you can jump onto this platform and take a virtual tour using what they say is their ultra precise 3D replica developed in collaboration with digital preservation company Iconum, I think it is.
Iconum, yeah.
Yeah, so they've used over like 22 petabytes of data, which is enough to fill, if everyone remembers using DVDs, it's like 5 million DVDs, which is an odd reference to make given today's technology movements.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can actually take a virtual tour through the Vatican. It's another interesting thing that Microsoft and CoPilot have been.
There you go, folks.
This is
Head
nice.
to the Vatican.
Microsoft really pushing forward with the AI stuff, which is excellent.
It'd be great if you could have like goggles and stuff that you could wear as you fly through it and stuff.
Yeah, I'm surprised you wouldn't be able to, sure, you could just put on, they might not want you to use Meta, but you could put on some Meta goggles and then have a little fly around.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. What else you got?
Yes, a lot happening. Should we jump into some funny things?
Sure.
I just want to talk about some hilarious stuff that happened.
Go ahead.
Let's start with Google.
Okay.
Good old Google.
What have they done now?
They, I think, did you pick this one up? There's like a 29-year-old student using Google Gemini AI for homework.
Yeah, I picked
was
this up.
thoroughly freaked out by the chat box erratic behavior, including alleged verbal abuse and death threats.
Why?
I mean,
why do this, Google?
I can't even fathom what that would have been like.
Yeah.
So essentially, I think you've got the article.
I've got the chat.
You've
got the article there.
I've got the article here. Yeah. So essentially, what's happening here? So a 29-year-old college student, as I said, claimed that they faced unusual situation, which left him thoroughly freaked out. So what did that chatbot say? It said, "This is for you, human, and you only." Whoops, sorry, I clicked on something there. "This is for you and you only. You are not special, you are not important, and you are not needed. You are a waste of time and resources.
Yeah, wow.
You are a burden on society. You are a drain on earth. You are a blight on landscape.
Yep.
You are a stain on the universe. Please die, please."
Please.
Talking to the outlet, he said, "This has seemed very direct, so it definitely scared me for more than a day, I would say, following the incident." He said the tech company should be held liable for such incidents. It's a very odd thing. You've got the actual query up here, right? So what did he put in there to get that?
So what I'm showing on screen here is he started off very innocently, as you would expect, really. What are some current challenges for older adults in terms of making their income stretch after retirement? What ways can social workers begin to address such challenges? And there's, give some answers, micro level, macro level kind of challenges. It goes back and forth in terms of basically creating like some work, some essay related material. So it sounds like they're doing some research into finance for older people. Respond in layman terms, incorporating the following, blah, 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 blah. So that's all fine. And then put it in a paragraph for older adults can be more vulnerable to financial exploitation. Add to this, add more to this, and don't change the punctuation. And there's even spelling mistakes in there. So it does all of that. And then the key issue comes about right at the end where he says, examples of abuse. And no, not that one there, just before the die part. It says, please define the difference between selective attention, divided attention, and sustained. And then there's an answer, and it goes, nearly 10 million children in the United States live in a grandparent-headed household. Question 15 options. And it's not even a question, it's just like continuing the conversation back and forth. And then it just goes, this is for you, human, you and you only. Ooh, die.
It's such a weird response.
And then
I mean, he's obviously like pushed and pushed and pushed with the response,
so
looking for something.
Before I could continue this chat, it's only got save option now before I could actually continue it. And when I continued it before, I asked it why it did this, and it just said, sometimes things go wrong with training. And
where did it pull its sources from?
Yeah, I mean, you go to jail for that kind of stuff. Well, maybe not jail, maybe jail.
Freedom of speech, man. This is America. You can say what you want.
Well, it's America, but Australia's different. But
it's true.
Yeah, you would get you'd probably not be working as a co-worker anymore.
No,
what are we willing to accept from AI when it does this kind of stuff? That's interesting.
Well, I mean, it's true. It's all human. It's taken from human sources. Like, it's not thinking for itself at this point. But that is that's awful.
What else you got?
I mean, Google's continuing on their journey. I mean, they have, ironically, even though this is a Gemini thing, Gemini has had a big update recently, which has potentially put it up above the leaderboard and pushing better stats than the likes of 4.0, whether that's true or not. Okay. So there's an interesting couple of updates there. So it's massive, particularly for things like chatbots and other tools. So definitely check that one out if you're interested. LinkedIn is facing some pretty hectic scrutiny at the moment. Another Microsoft player here. Because they have outspokenly admitted that they are scraping posts to feed their AI model. And again, this comes back to, I guess, who was it a while back that did the same? I think it was Facebook or some of the others where, the option to turn that off is very, 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 very buried in the back and hidden statements and settings. Yep. So people aren't sure about that this is happening, essentially.
It's happening, folks.
But of course it's happening. Of course it's happening. Like, everyone who knows tech companies, like, these monsters, know that this stuff is happening. But for the general public, are very surprised about it. The hilarious thing for me is that if you compare this to things like TikTok and stuff, you've got the States trying to push TikTok out of the country because it's owned by a Chinese subsidiary. And yet all of their local social media companies, Facebook, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, they're all scraping, tracking, and doing the same thing, if not worse, than what the likes of TikTok are doing. And this is a prime example of that. So
fair enough. Crazy.
Put your money where your mouth is. What have you got on there?
Indeed. We've got something here on some GenAI research that was done. It was shared by Harvard Business School, and it's all about the nature of generative AI and work. And what was found was that how it changes the nature of work. And some of the key findings were that developers, especially, and looking at open source, They focus more on core coding things. So the key parts of the job, the core parts, rather than project management. They were able to do a whole lot more with the time that they've got. They could do more exploration as well and be creative. And the results were more pronounced for lower ability workers. So if you're, let's say like a junior dev, they found that you had much more increased results than the more senior devs. Now, whether that's because of embracing and uptake from folks like that, I don't know. But my takeaway on things like this is that we even use it like a whole lot more, thinking about how it's changed things for us. There's less saying no to things because you can actually get things done that you would have just been like, well, that's too hard to do, so you wouldn't even try it. Now you can try it, and we'll see some of that later. You take on things that you normally wouldn't, and it just gives you newer perspective and ideas. So it was really interesting. But yeah, Harvard Business School, so check it out, Generative AI and the Nature of Work, I thought was like really interesting. What about yourself?
There's been some interesting, I guess, news or updates between our good friends, Mr. Elon Musk, and Mr. Altman from OpenAI, CEO and global remaining founder.
Yeah.
They have, obviously, there's been some law disputes that have been occurring over the last many years, with Elon Musk even now most recently redirecting them at Microsoft.
Yeah.
But as a whole part of this ongoing dispute with Musk's concerns and issues with how he left the company and how the company ended up pretty much the direction it started going in.
Yeah.
A lot of the email conversations have risen between the two, leading up to Musk's exit back in the day. So just some of this is on TechCrunch, just some of the conversations that were occurring between the two. So like the current structure provides you with the path where you end up on a literal absolute control over AGI. You stated that you don't want control of final AGI, but during this negotiation, you've shown us that absolute control is extremely important to you. Wow. And so there's pretty much just like a lot of just backstab, just angry messages between the two of them.
Guys?
Like, you said this, no, you did this, or we don't need you here. You're nobody. We haven't been able to fully trust your judgment. I think this was directed at Musk. Your judgment throughout this process, because we don't understand your cost function. We don't understand why the CEO title is important to you. You stated the reason to change it. It's hard really to understand what's driving it.
You don't make sense to
Is
us.
AGI truly your primary motivation? How does it connect to your potential goals? And like just neither of them really answering that question, just having to go at each other throughout the whole thing.
I mean, it sounds like AI having a go at each other, really. So
I mean, let's be real. They both are AI already. They're from the future, coming back to.
Oh, they definitely are from the future and stuff. It's interesting. I think it's one of those things where you just have people going back and forth with each other and doing it publicly. And it's just like, come on, keep it private, folks. Sort your stuff out. But anyway, interesting one on my side, jumping back into education in this sense. So our friends over in Perth, and one here, they're split up all over the place, Stirling Rose. So they do great work in the AI space, and they were residents here at Stone and Chalk for a little while. And one of their partners, James Myant, he was at the Northern Territories COGSO, so it's an annual council in Darwin on education, the game-changing technology in education, what role AI plays as part of that. So there was a recent announcement from Anthony Albanese as our Prime Minister over here, as people might remember, where banning social media for those under the age of 16. And, as part of it, what role does like AI play in that space? And what was interesting for me was that, there's how AI, they speak about how AI could help read, whenever there's policy changes, it usually takes about like 20 minutes maybe to skim through some of this stuff if you want to go to it in at least some level of detail to understand it, and then you have to read over it again. Whether it's in blockchain or AI, we read a lot of policy stuff. Working in tech, it's funny, you deal with a lot of law, a lot of regulation and stuff like that, especially with emerging tech because it's so new. But how AI kind of helps with that, which is true. But also, like, it makes me think about how can you make things translatable for you. So you might just be an educator and away from all the law and the tech side of things, or you might be in the law and tech, but you really need to understand the nuanced world of teachers and even the students, being able to put yourself in those shoes. And it's really hard because we build up ourselves to have all these biases and stuff like that. unintentionally in many ways, but it just means that we're unintentionally ignorant to the needs of others. But how can AI help translate into a language you understand, but also give you empathy in your own understanding of what others are going through? I think that's important here. And especially when it comes to changes like this, social changes like banning social media, very interesting stuff there. But great groups like Stirling and Rose are helping lead the conversation. So definitely worth checking out the stuff that they've done and just following them on socials because they often post about AI type things.
It's interesting because I mean that literally leads nicely into that sort of AGI world when we get to that point where that stuff like that will be much more possible, but in an in an actual meaningful way.
Yeah.
Even if you start training AI now with empathy and consideration, it's still based on human data. It's still based on, okay, what does the human say that this should be done, or what do most people say that should be done in this scenario, and therefore I will output that as a result, which as we've seen from the Google thing, could still go very wrong, if not trained properly. Yeah. Which obviously then you put guardrails in place to make sure that if they say something bad, redirect.
Exactly.
But as you move into that AGI format, you can start to like really. Yeah, which we'll talk about in a moment, actually. Another interesting piece of TechCrunch, and this is something that we'll probably talk more about over the coming weeks as these businesses bring products to market. Just a list of all the big AI companies, 44 of them particularly, that raised over 100 million or more over the last year. So quite a long list of companies. I mean, it just shows how much cash is being thrown into AI. I mean, 44 that have raised over 100 million this year. Some of them hitting up to like 400 million, 650 million plus. So we're talking like billions of dollars of cash that's been thrown about it to these organizations.
That is nuts.
Some of them really that I find really is interesting. Physical intelligence, which is like a foundational software for robots. This is like touches on that, robot and challenging that Tesla market. So like we're seeing more and more, seeing a lot of companies from China who are now starting to really push that robotics, humanoid robotics even further. And probably, we're expecting in the next 2-3 years to have humanoid robots in our home supporting us or be commercially available. So that's, lots of investment going into that. Scrolling down here, Light Matter, which is a photonic computer startup, which is really interesting. So if you're into photonic computing, so if you're into different ways of computing power, this is a massive one there. Their base value of $4.4 billion, raising over 800 million. So one of the largest ones. Crazy. Yeah, one of the largest raises here. Even Up, which is a legal tech company. You talk a lot about legal, or you've got a lot of colleagues in that space with legal AI. So really interesting one there. As we start to see more and more industries become automated with AI. Whether it's providing feedback, managing documents, or just like being virtual lawyers, like this is having agents for that matter as well. Yeah,
and a Series D, so you can see that they've been around for a little while. They probably added. To get to a Series D in only the last few years, I'm sure they've been around before AI. We can dig into that.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but yeah, sounds like they've been a legal tech firm that's added in generative AI maybe at some point like recently, but good work if they're taking that boundary and pushing it
further. OpenAI obviously raised $6.6 billion this year. Just a few B's.
Yeah, just a bit of change
over the M's. Glean, the likes of Grok we saw earlier this year, not to be confused with Musk's Grok, but GROQ. And other businesses, so there's quite a long list there, but we'll keep you I want to keep a strong eye on some of these to see how they go, whether they become, something that's going to be groundbreaking for the market, or they're going to sizzle out just like, as we see with a lot of trends, particularly in the tech space, there's a big push for something, stuff starts to dip up. And I think we're starting to hit that peak where AI, the innovation of existing AI is shrinking that little bit more. The changes that are coming out now, as we've seen across Anthropic, we've seen across OpenAI, we've seen across Gemini, they're only minute changes. They're not groundbreaking shifts in that sense. So that's really interesting. Was an interesting read. And on that note, though, as we talk about the shift, taking a step back to AGI, which has come back into the headlines recently,
what's in vogue?
With a couple of interesting points or just conversations from Sam Altman and even Mr. Dario himself from Anthropic. Both of them jumped on a podcast this week, and they were all as any podcaster in the tech space wants to know, wants to hear from them is when's AGI coming? Like when do they think it's coming?
Is it coming tomorrow?
Is it coming tomorrow? Is it coming next year? So
2026?
Sam said something interesting, which I was quite surprised about. He was asked the question of what's going to excite you? What's exciting you next year? And his response was
Terminator.
In 2025, what's to come? AGI. Yeah. Excited for that.
so. And I thought that was really interesting. And he expands on a few points there, but doesn't really touch on the AGI piece too much. So he's predicting that next year, OpenAI is going to be pushing that AGI really close. If you talk to anyone else, if we talk to, if you think about the Elon Musk, you've got the godfather of AI himself, who's you've got even like some James Cameron talking about AGI over the last couple of months. Their prediction has been pushing closer to the 2030 mark just because of the existing tech, energy requirements, even the code itself not actually being able to do true AGI. So it starts to beg the conversation of what do these businesses define as AGI? So is it going to be true AGI, or is it this sort of like half-baked, extended O1 model? Because there's been a lot of groundbreaking movements that have occurred in the AGI, or heading towards that AGI space. If we think about what's happened, with the O1 model, which is a new way of training when it starts to, question itself. It starts to think about what the answer is. They've been expanding on that inference. Inference phase, which
getting it to think,
which is one step of it. And then you've got some other organizations which are pushing in even more interesting ways of training, which is called the time to process, which is test time training. And so there's a couple of businesses, and there's a great YouTube guy, Matthew Burnham. Definitely check him out. He does a really good in-depth explanation on what that means, but essentially is that time to process between testing and training and consideration for how it defines the answer, which is it's a little step even further away from inference thinking. So we are, there are small strides, but currently nothing big.
Yeah, we've already
got what is Sam defining as AGI in that space? Like, it's just a weird thing.
If you took like someone from like 20 years ago and showed them all the things that are going on now, they would think that if you said, look, it's thinking, they're like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really is. Compared to what it was before, a question mark is like, do we actually keep moving the bar? Are we being too harsh on what we consider as AGI, or are we being too lenient if we're even saying that, there's signs of it? There is the whole reasoning kind of thing. And yes, giving it more time seems to make it be able to reason better. I haven't seen if there's problems like where you give it a problem, say, a riddle of sorts, then you change the variables in the riddle. If giving it more time has led AI to actually figure things out better. Because before, without having that, it needs time to think and go back and forth with itself. If it wasn't in the training set, we were seeing that, the reasoning is just horrible. So coding, for example, which is a pretty straightforward one, because there's only a few ways there's multiple ways to skin a cat in doing coding stuff, but there's, when it's been trained on stuff like GitHub and all that, or whatever, it's scraped. Let's get into copyright stuff later. But if it's been trained on how to solve coding problems, then it typically answers coding problems really well. And when they ask it a question that they know is probably in the training set, because the model cut off at a certain date, so you ask it something that's probably within there from these famous kind of coding challenge websites, they see the answers are great. And when they ask it something that it's not been trained on because it's a newer coding challenge, it does horribly, right? And so it does lead to that thing where you still need humans in the loop, because if we're feeding it good knowledge and inputs, then it's going to have better reasoning. Like if you're feeding it like, here is a way to solve a problem, it can reason, it can work with that. Now, AGI for some has been that it needs to extend and go beyond that. Anyway, let's see. What have you got here?
Well, I was going to say, this is another way that they're testing the whole AGI thing. So
you're already on.
Oh, I'm on. Oh, excellent. So this is the Matthew Berman thing that I'm recommending people check out if you want to learn more about that time to compute this. So then here you have, this is how they're testing at the moment, where you have I think it's like a 7x7 grid of blocks.
Yep.
And you ask the AI to conduct a certain task, whether it's to flip or rearrange or find the solution of the output based on the query.
Yep.
And that's one of the big the ways that they're doing it right at the moment. Okay. And so you can change the colors or change the alter alter the query, and it has to give the correct answer. And the more regularly it can give that right answer, I think you need to be able to do it up to about 98%. Could consider it as an AGI success. And obviously we're currently at that sort of 45-50 mark, I think, for a lot of these things. But yeah, so there's lots of different ways that they're testing AGI. But then we've got Mr. Dario, who...
Was this on the Lex Friedman podcast?
Yes, this is on Lex Friedman. They spoke for 5.5
hours.
I can't believe it. I did not watch all of it.
Sometimes like you have chats and
if you say, well, I don't know, we're starting to get to like PhD level, and last year we were at undergraduate level, and the year before we were at like the level of a high school student. Again, you can quibble with at what tasks and for what. We're still missing modalities, but those are being added. Like computer use was added, like image generation has been added. If you just kind of like eyeball the rate at which these capabilities are increasing, it does make you think that we'll get there by 2026 or 2027.
Yep.
Now he does. He puts a big caveat here on this. Like, and this, I think he has the caveat further in it. Doesn't put it at the start. Like, he's purely taking this from a statistical growth or rapid growth of AI over the last couple of years. So if you see that graph of progression in AI and how much it's accelerated its capabilities, that's the suggestion he's saying is towards 2027. But given all the other factors around what it means to be true AGI, what the power that's required against all the other things that we've talked about previously in our episodes that you need in order to have a true AGI experience, he thinks it's going to be a lot longer than that in reality. This is just him going, if you look at the data in terms of how we're accelerating, sure, 2026, 2027, which is why people are throwing out all these numbers around, 2030, even someone are saying more accurate, that they think is the more accurate approach to when it will come to market. But if you look at that data, 2026, 2027, but more likely it's going to be a bit later than that as we have to solve all the other things that define it. And again, it comes back to that question is, what are these businesses defining as AGI?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about definition, folks.
That's it.
Already be there. All right, what's next for you?
So a couple of like little fast-paced things, I think, if we... a few new releases of items in the market. We have Anthropic released its PG agent a couple of weeks ago. OpenAI, as we know, and OpenAI has now done the same. So you can jump in that and have a play around. It's also released some new features on Mac itself. So OpenAI can actually now access some tools, and you can actually help it to support and query. Whether you're doing some coding. I'll pull up a source here.
Bring it up, Jamie.
Bring it up, Jamie. There's an interesting little video here you can watch. It's just explaining it. So for those who are on Macs, which I am not, you can start to read some of the desktop apps and actually support you. Oh, the video's not here. Here's an example there. So it's actually nice. So you can actually, if you're doing some coding, you can use the OpenAI tool to review your coding, and it doesn't actually interact with the application specifically, if I remember correctly. It actually just gives you some recommendations based on what you're doing, and then you have to copy those recommendations from the OpenAI app into the tool that you're using. And I think like Xcode is one of them. There it is there, Xcode, and a couple of other like just limited functionality apps on your Mac.
Very cool. What else?
With continuing that, Anthropic, a prompt improver was just released recently.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you saw this.
Is it just like inside of Claude or something?
Well, inside of the developer console of Anthropic.
Okay.
Cool. Of Claude. Yeah. So they're introducing this ability to improve prompts and manage examples directly within the Anthropic console. So these features make it easier to leverage prompt engineering best practices and build more reliable AI applications. I haven't tested this out yet myself as well, but essentially there's a little function that you can pull up. You can then improve or put your chain of thought reasoning, example standardization, example enrichment, rewriting, and pre-fill assistance, and that can help to improve, I guess, the prompts that you're submitting there as well. So
I guess if you're like a developer and stuff, it's just, you could do this before. You could add in these things to do that sort of prompt improvement coding yourself, but like making it just as a new feature that you can just API call. Great.
Yeah, or could even be if you're trying to pull certain documents, or if people have the application installed on their desktop, you can make sure it produces a certain number of actions to get a certain outcome, or you can limit how it's conducting its certain research, or have like the generic queries that you want to repeat over and over again, and then execute those accordingly. Yeah. So Perplexity's added ads. What?
They've added.
They've added ads. They've
course they
added ads.
They're taking the Google model.
They've taken the Google model and
Crazy.
started adding ads into their tool. I'm hoping this is just for the free version. I haven't seen the ads pop up on mine yet. It's a slow rollout, but it has been. I found a couple of images online of people talking about it. As you scroll, when you type in your query, you scroll down to the bottom and you can see a whole bunch of ads are now appearing on it. I've got the pro version. I have, and maybe that's.
You got the pro version of Perplexity?
Yeah, I've always had it. I enjoy it. I love it. It sits there on my desktop, does my thing. I don't use Google so much anymore.
Good.
And an interesting Auto VFX. I don't know if anyone's heard of this before. They've just released a really cool tool. Essentially, what you can do is to take a little video of your own, upload it, and then you can add, augment it with pieces there. So you can see an example where there's a couple of different images that are floating around. So you can see that video of that circulation is something that's been uploaded.
Wow.
And then you have the AI actually adding in interactive elements onto the video itself.
That is crazy. Were you just like moving that around? You're doing the slider. That is okay. Well done.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not sure it's like 100% available to everyone yet. I think it's still in beta, but you can see that, there's someone adding a little dragon into the, it's floating.
A dragon onto the screen.
Someone driving through the road and simulating a big car crash. I mean, it doesn't look amazing, but this is like baby steps in this direction.
It's getting better. That's the thing. Like, we got to remember with all this kind of stuff that it's still very early days.
Yeah.
So.
Final article. I thought this was hilarious. There was this little piece that was done around poetry.
Okay.
What would you prefer?
Go on.
Poetry from an AI or poetry from Shakespeare? And
both.
Both. You prefer both all at the same time. But what was actually uncovered as they were doing this little test is that people preferred, this is the AI test in the middle of it. People were preferring the AI tool over the original sources. Yeah. So they tested it against 2,300 people. None of them were poetry experts, of course. It's just more about what you like and what felt really nice to you than saying,
what's the vibe?
What's the vibe, guys? So they found that people rated the AI generated poems much more highly than the other poetry from the likes of Shakespeare and co.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's like AI is the bell curve of the scraped responses. It's the average in the middle of the bell curve.
Exactly right.
Responses when you haven't tweaked it to temperature up and down and other instructions and stuff, but just, hey, create a poem about this. It'll just give you the most average that it thinks. So it's a reflection on us that we like ourselves.
That's very true. And it's actually an interesting thing because like the average part is something I just wanted to touch on. And that is what I'm seeing is a couple of my people I'm close with who have some AI, platforms that they've been building out. Fuzzy is a really good one, which I'll talk about in later days because they're doing a big update in January, which I'd love to share that with everyone.
Very cool.
But these businesses who are utilizing other APIs from a varying different AI tools, whether it's OpenAI, Claude, or Anthropic, or and the works. Mm-hmm. I'm finding they're doing more and more crossover. They're not just sticking with say 4.0 or they're not sticking with. They're doing multiple calls to different tools.
Okay.
And that's because of the way that the tools pump out different responses. So in the instances of say Fuzzy, they were finding that the output they were getting from 4.0, which was the model they're currently using, it still felt a little bit AI-ish, even no matter how you trained it, no matter how you queried it, it was still a little bit. People, when they were creating, their messages and their output based on this Fuzzy tool, and obviously I haven't explained what Fuzzy is, but they were finding a lot of feedback from people was that it was just too AI-ish in the language it was written. Whereas when they switched to Claude, they were getting better responses that felt more human, or it found it easier to prompt changes within Claude than they were with 4.0. But 4.0 was doing a better job at general research and finding and scouring and getting the customer to the point where they can start creating their own their own responses off the back of the research. So what these businesses are doing, these businesses I'm seeing that they're doing is they're actually taking parts of one model and parts of another model to complete whatever process they're doing and bringing them together. So that's a bit of a trend that I'm seeing. And I mean, that kind of talks to this, what people like.
these things are tools at the end of the day, right? Like
Exactly.
there's not going to be like one hard and fast solution, or like, just taking it at a high level. Oh, this is only a blockchain solution, or this is only an AI solution, or this is only a generative. Like, sure, maybe, but I think we're going to get much more nuanced than that. But speaking of solutions, I thought we'd dive into something like a bit more fun, rather than just like the news is great, folks, but we really like the interactivity. We do a lot of interactivity ourselves. You're using Juno. We're doing stuff with Psych. I was talking to you before the show that we're doing stuff where the stack that we built on Psych, where it's already connected to Azure OpenAI, it's already got the pricing, it's already got the engine that we built to make it easier for developers to talk to AI and set things up. And people you've seen on the show, you've seen Psych in action, but I'm actually doing stuff myself that I normally wouldn't be able to do, Chris. I'm doing stuff where I am the developer. I'm a data scientist by trade, so I've worked with Python. I do a lot of data analytics and visualizations. I'm not a React or HTML developer, yet I can be and develop some things to show and put in front of clients that will eventually become these applications that we actually put in production far quicker than I could have if I learnt from scratch, as well as being able to augment the work that others are doing. We've got, our team of core developers, and then we've got a team that does stuff overseas for us as well. And a lot of the ideation comes from us here. I can do a lot of that with clients and get things out. And it's just amazing how much this levels you up. So we're talking about like leveling up the juniors. Even if you're a senior, but you've got junior skills in a certain area, marketing, development, whatever it is, you can actually do some cool stuff. So I was just going to show here. This is an example where what I've asked the AI to do.
So you've pumped this through.
I've got
with
Claude. I've
Yeah.
got Claude here. We'll jump over to you for Vercel.
And then so we're going to compare 3 tools. We've got Claude, Vercel, and Bolt that we're going to do the exact same query in.
Yeah.
And then see what the output looks like and compare, I guess, the quality of the results.
And it's not just like the output, because you don't just do
truth.
Query.
You query it, you play with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting to.
Can you take So let's compare that.
So what I'm saying is that you don't just get it and just one shot it. Like you said, you iterate, right?
Exactly.
Like this is something. So we'll go maybe a little bit back and forth on this, and I'll explain the setup because people can see it here on screen. You probably have read what's on there, but for those that are listening in online, looking at Claude right now, and what I've asked it is just, I thought, like, what's something fun? Okay, so I want to build a Spotify-like application, but instead of music, we're letting people look at CVs and resumes. A person would be like the main album cover, and then the things that they've done would be their songs. So be really creative with this. So all I've done is just ask that. I've got, I forget what this side panel is. When it first came out, we were talking about it. I think it's artifacts. I've got artifacts turned on. And what it's done here is it said, I'll create a React component called Careerify. Great. Reimagines resumes and Spotify-like interface. And then it's got code here that it'll show. It's got a preview as well. It describes what it's created. So it's only the one page. It's not super interactive. And I've got the main chat of Claude on the left-hand side. I would go back and forth with it to be able to do something here. But the idea basically is that not only would you see the artifact, like the actual pretend image, because it shows you just very much like Spotify. And Spotify is like a great example of something that people know and recognize. You can see here on screen the profile of a person. They've got their image. Well, there's no image saved there, but you can ask for that. They've got a play button here, just like you have in Spotify. Maybe that play button is going to be an AI podcast about the person describing them, because we seem to like the podcast style format, like with Notebook LM. And then it's got a senior developer thing here, the duration, other things that they've done, their skills. But I could see, potentially a use for, or a design style for like a resume, like, or a careers website type app where you can scroll through and get matches, just like Spotify does matches as a company. Or like if you're you're a person going for a job, you're like the artist now, and I know that there are these arguments that ours get screwed with Spotify. This is just the interface, but you can see the code behind it. So we're just looking at like how these things actually work. So there's a preview. Here is the code. If you know React, you would see that this is just one page. to get it to interact with other pages. I mean, you could put it all on the one block of code, but you're getting into thousands of lines of code. It's better that you split it out. But it is interesting as a starting point being able to do that one there. So that's one. Did you want to jump to VO or shall I?
I've got VO up. I was gonna VO. Switch over here.
Yep.
VO here. So I put in the same query, and it's pumped out a preview. It's interesting looking at the result that you've got and how it's pulled. It is a very Spotify-ish look to.
So just quickly cut back. Look at that. There's the Spotify type one, and go back to.
And then we look at mine, which is kind of taken a few influences, but like I don't know, I'm not 100% sure what they've got. So they've got the title, we've got the imagery as we've talked about, and then here we've got senior developer at TechCo for 2 years.
Yeah, the color
graduated from Code University. Yeah, so a bit of accessibility here that you might want to tweak with. So like, can we make the text white? Let's see if that.
Yeah. So it's coding away as you would see on screen here, but like behind the scenes, folks, like, sorry, if you're watching on the, listening on the podcast, if you watch on the podcast, it means we're far more popular than we are right now. But you can see the code being created. It's created the new career tracks TypeScript file.
There we go. Now we can see it's all visible. So you can see here, nothing's interactive. There's some nice little hover states. You see the play feature if you'd have the video uploaded. So a little bit simpler, I think.
I would say the Claude one is closer in terms of Spotify-like looks.
Yeah, but even the styling, I think it's gone for that. It kind of has mimicked the look and feel of, I guess, what people expect from a quality design these days. Whereas this one's come a bit more it's much more prototypey than I say something that you'd have to play a lot more with that output than you would with yours potentially.
I agree. And then the other one, which is Bolt, and I haven't run this yet, but I'll show you what it's like when you do run it. So let's switch over.
And Bolt's my favorite.
Bolt is great. So Bolt is very much like there's Cursor, which you have to install. Bolt is also something that you can just run online. So this is something just for the easy devs. I know that there's, I think it's Quen. There's also Cursor, which you can install. People for a long time were using GitHub, and GitHub had CoPilot, which is where Microsoft takes its name from. So that is really interesting. But what's interesting here is that the way that Bolt does it, and I'll just run this one. So it's the exact same prompt that we've run in the other ones. This will actually create the full stack app. What I mean by that is not only do I get the one file and just the preview, you can see here it's got the various necessary packages. It has defaulted to TypeScript here, which is great. I could tell it if I wanted it to be Java or TypeScript. You can see index pages, you can see the main page, you can see the app.tsx, so app.typescript is the main file that you need when you're running these things. It's creating a sidebar. But what it's showing on screen here, Chris, is that it's doing it as a code editor. So when you use stuff like, I mean, here's a preview screen from something else like I'm building where I've got like an ESG kind of questionnaire that I'm building out. This is using Visual Studio from Microsoft, a typical code editor that people like me would not necessarily touch until you actually, play around with these, unless you have these tools. And so it's giving like a similar experience to that here. And look, it's still coding away. So far more detail than the other one. It's running it online on servers. So this does it through StackBlitz, which is a place where you can you can host things that you build. It can connect to your GitHub, and I'll show you that. But what it's going to do now that it's done the NPM install, which coders and developers would know, it's basically built the whole, and not much there on the app just yet, but it's built out technically the whole app. So have a look at this. So if I just
pages, structures, it's incredible.
I've just gone full page. So it'll take a few seconds to come up here. I'll just go back actually. Let's just go back to code, then go back to the preview. We'll wait for that to load, but it's got more interactive kind of pages. So it's only got 2 talents on the screen there.
But you can expand that out.
I can click on that. You can see the details of that person there, very much like Spotify. Let's see what else kind of works. If I go back to home, okay, that doesn't work. Go product engineering. I mean, look, you got to design these other things in there as well for yourself. But it is interesting, like what it can do. If I go back to code and then back to the preview. So what I did on screen there, I was trying to figure out a way that, what it does actually let you interact with. We had that other person there. So it seems it's done at least like 2 pages there, but very much like a Spotify-like application. And the cool thing is that you get the code here. you can copy all these things down to your local machine if you want to replicate and run this. And, you know, you'd have to install all of the dependencies and libraries. It's using Tailwind here, which is for CSS, the design of it, but you could deploy this on StackBlitz, or you could open it in StackBlitz. You can, let's just open it in StackBlitz so you can see, because it's connected to this online code editor. And if you've connected your GitHub, which I have in here, you could actually save this to your GitHub repository and continue development using an AI editor. So if you copy this down manually, like some people might do, then you lose the AI editor capabilities. But if you have that connection, and you can have it as private in your GitHub. So with GitHub, it's that online repository. You can have private, you can have public stuff in there, but it is a cool way for you to play around with this kind of stuff. It's far more featured, as you can see here, but we're going to see more of these. And the one greatest thing is that they've made a lot of what they've done here open source. And what that means is that you can download this and just run it on your own machine, connect it to Claude, you know, Anthropic if you want, or connect it to OpenAI, whatever kind of model that you choose there. And then we've seen, because of that, others take what's here, develop something far more rigorous, right? And use the collective, you know, efforts of the community to develop an even better version of Bolt that you can just download. So you don't just have to be the only one yourself. There are these benefits to open source, folks, but how cool is this?
I think it's great. I mean, if you look at the difference between the tools, and you can easily see why Bolt is so much more powerful in this space, because it was built from the ground up for this purpose. Whereas if you look at VO, you look at Claude, I mean, even to an extent, OpenAI or ChatGPT can also do some code, but they weren't built from the ground up for that purpose. Volt had a very different purpose initially, and then shifted heavily into the code base, development application purposes. You have Claude, which is originally was an LLM. They pushed themselves into, even though they're extremely good at the mathematics side of things, but they pushed them into the code base side of things. And OpenAI, you know, obviously the lowest of I think those four.
Yeah, they've got
terms of
Canvas, which is very useful.
It is very useful, but it doesn't have this. I don't think it gives you the same quality outcome at the moment.
No,
compared to what their competitors have got to offer.
Not yet.
But that's because that's from the ground up. That's purpose. Yeah, and like as we're seeing, everything is changing so quickly now. So you know, next week, OpenAI could be
all new.
Number one. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I could see it being there.
That was great. I mean, I had a colleague of mine in my team, Jason, he was playing with, I think he was using Volt at first. And I was like, oh, mate, you should be using Bolt. Like, give it a go. And completely changed.
What is Bolt?
Completely changed his world. Even for a couple of other people, we've been having these Friday catch-ups, being like, guys, use Bolt. If you know a little bit of coding and you want to have a play around and accelerate yourself when you're creating a website, just jump into Bolt.
I mean, if you're designing something, put it this way, for any kind of client work that you're doing, where maybe it needs an app, maybe it doesn't need an app, but you just need to visualize and imagine, like the app build might be so far down the line that you don't want to touch it yet, or maybe it's something soon. Whatever it is, if you need to visualize it, use one of these tools and actually see what it could look like. And don't just use the one, try across a few of them. I mean, look at what Bolt's created here. And yeah, there's just so much cool stuff, because if you think about it, you need to quickly, especially startups, right, be able to get stuff out there. Even if you're a bigger company, you don't want to spend millions of dollars like developing something just to find out that, oh, it's not exactly what, you know, is going to solve the problem. You want to be able to develop it, put stuff out there, get it done quite quickly, and get that feedback. So what a great way to do that.
Well, imagine here's a business idea for people.
Free business idea.
Yeah, free business idea. You want to run workshops for customers to be able to accelerate their ideas. So traditionally we use the design sprint as that process, and you go through, you know, some sketching design. Imagine rather than doing all the sketching and design now, you have a prompt engineer and maybe a developer in the room with you, and you sit down with your customer, your client, and you come up with some ideas around business things, bring up bolt.new, pump in and just do a bit of like query iteration. So now, rather than going through this big sketching design process, you're doing a prompting process to get the right prompt to build out a prototype. And your dev person assists with pulling the stuff out of Bolt, pumping it into a GitHub setup, and where you're able to actually then test an actual version of that prototype with a bunch of customers without having to go through a whole Figma design.
Yeah. And on the customer side of things, you could even create with another AI, basically get it to build out the code and stuff, and then describe it with maybe another tool, and then have that tool create synthetic customers and what that feedback might be.
And go through
You can get a lot of early stuff. Sure, it doesn't change what real people would do. But I think, you can actually get an earlier insight into things. It just shortens the time and it gives you higher quality things. When you do speak to customers, it's not like you're going out to them raw and new, potentially pissing people off because you've not done your homework.
Yeah.
This is you doing your homework and doing it in far faster ways. And I thought you were getting to, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was a tool for that? I mean, we've got these tools, but I was just describing in bulk, literally just then. What if they're like, imagine a tool for like a workshop tool that could help you do this kind of ideation, and it is literally building it out now. Let's take a quick look and see if it actually shows us a nice kind of preview. Literally in the seconds that you were talking.
It's faster than a workshop would have taken.
It's, look, hey AI, can you run the workshop? I mean, so here's
you can do that now. That's
company name, industry, size, blah, 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 key challenges that they can describe, select a timeline, select a budget, company size, generate solution. Oh, I haven't filled out the field. I don't know.
Let's do it. Let's put in that. Look at psych.ai.
Fake co.
No,
industry.
Let's go psych.
Okay. Psych.ai. Industry. Tech everything. Company size. Let's go 1 to 10. Budget. Let's go. We've got that as a budget. Let's do it 1 to 3 months. Describe challenges. Get more tech time for tech people. Doesn't make sense, but let's just say that, all right? Let's just see what it comes up with. You can add more challenges. That's great.
Go add. Oh, okay.
No, it doesn't. Oh, okay.
Oh.
Here you go. It's got a pop-up.
Oh my God, it actually gave responses.
Yeah. You want to increase your operational efficiency, blah, 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 implementation steps. I mean, obviously this is very just simple. But yeah, interesting. Let's add another challenge. Grow
customer base.
Customers. Grow customer base. Now, obviously, this is like connecting to some either preset answers or not.
Wouldn't be preset.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it's actually doing something proper there, but yeah, you can ideate and generate and do all these 888 things.
Love it.
Love it. Anyway,
very good. Well done. I think that's it.
That's it.
That was a bit of fun there right at the end.
Another great episode, Chris. Look, if people are interested in these tools and how they can use them in their day-to-day, certainly just hit us up. You can watch the YouTube shorts with all this kind of stuff. We'll have more educational materials out there, but just get involved. There's so many cool events going on. Tech space events, the TED Talks and stuff, and just so much cool stuff out there that people are missing out on.
Stay curious, stay interested, keep testing, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Circuit board buzzing, worldwide, tech trends blazing, digital fire.